Okay, now we are recording. So, the process for writing a method. Number one, identify the method's return type. There'll be something in the description that says, this method returns whatever. Okay? This goes first in the method header. Second, identify the method's name, if given, or pick one, if not given. Okay? Return type, then name. 3, identify the method parameters and include them separated by commas. Okay? That's the first part. That's the method header. So, for example, if the question is, write a method named, I don't know, scrambler that accepts 2 strings named input1 and input2 and returns a string. How do we write the header? What goes first? Step 1. What's the return type? Return type is a string, right? So it shouldn't be anything else. It shouldn't be int. It shouldn't be void. We see the method returns a string, so the return type is string. What's the method's name? Yeah, but what's the method's name? Scrambler, right? So scrambler goes next. And then every method header has parentheses to accept the parameters. What are the parameters? How do we write them as parameters? String input 1, comma, string input 2. So not input 1, comma, input 2, not string input 1, comma, input 2, but separately string input 1 and string input 2. Okay? That's the header. And if you do well on the header, no matter what else happens, you'll get a few points. Okay? And there's no reason that anybody should fuck this up. Right? This is not logic. This is a very simple and clear process. Questions on this? Method header? Easy, right? Ta-da. Okay. Don't worry, I'm capturing it all, so you can take pictures if you want, but I'm capturing it. Okay. Now, the next part that's a little bit more difficult, okay, actually writing the method. Now, for writing the method, there's 2 steps. Number 1, figure out what the method wants, right? What the method is supposed to do. And number 2, translate that into code. Okay, now many students have a wrong expectation here. They expect that what matters more is the process of thinking about how it's supposed to be done. But anybody can do step 1. It's actually right there in the problem. For example, if this returns a string composed of the first 3 characters of input 1 and the last 2 characters of input 2, okay? Anybody can do that in just ordinary words. You say, okay, first 3 from that one, last 2 from that one, return them both. You don't even need to know anything about Java to do that. But this is fundamentally a course about Java. This first step, it's a given that you can do that. You don't get credit for being able to do that. You get credit for step 2, translating into syntactically valid, error-free code. Okay? That's what is of value. Anybody can do step 1. You don't need this course to do step 1. You need this course to do step 2, right? And step 2 is where the value is. That's what actually learning to code is. Okay? So, what does this method want? First 3 characters of input 1. How do we get that? So what would be a way that we could get the first 3 characters from input 1? What would be a syntactically valid way to, how would we write that in Java code? Are you asking me or telling me? Oh. Not 3, 1. Not 3, 0. How do we extract the first 3 characters from input 1 with the substring method? 0, 3, right? The first one is the start. The difference between the last and the first is how long it is, right? So if we did something like string first part equals input 1 dot substring 0, 3, right? That's going to be the first characters. Likewise, the last 2 from input 2, you could do that as a substring, or you could do it as char at. For the first one, you could also do char at. You could just individually get the 3 characters. It's a little longer, but so we could do, for example, string last part equals what? Equals input 2 dot substring input 2 dot length minus 2 comma input 2 dot length. And in order to do that, you need to know the length function, you need to know the substring function, you need to know how they're structured, right? If you don't know those, then you're going to get this thing and say, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I have no idea how to do part 2 here. Okay? But this is a way. This is one way you could do it. Another way you could do it would be, you know, and then you return the 2, right? So return first part plus last part. Make sure you're actually doing what you're supposed to do. So this method, as written, would meet the requirements. Alternatively, right, we could do it another way. We could do it string scrambler, again, same thing, string input 1, comma, string input 2. We could do it all with characters, char at. So we could do string, whatever, output, let's call it, equals, and we have to start with an empty string, because concatenation, right? We'll talk about that in a minute, plus input 1 dot char at plus input 1 dot char at 1 plus input 1 dot char at 2 plus input 2 dot char at input 2 dot length minus 2 plus input 2 dot char at input 2 dot minus 1, right? This way is boring and lame. It'll work, right? It'll work if I give you a simple thing like return 2 characters, it's not so bad. But if I say write a method that gives you the first 20 characters of the string, you don't want to be writing all these individual char ats. Okay? But it's correct, it's syntactically valid. It just feels a little long and tedious. And it gets longer and tedious with the more characters that are involved. Yes?
Can you explain how to use like the dot?
Yes. I will explain the dot. So in dot notation, it fundamentally means, and I'll do it here so you can see it. For example, anytime you see a dot, that means the thing on the right side of the dot belongs to the thing on the left side. So, char at here is a method belonging to this particular object. So I'm going to run the char at method for input 1 to return the 0 index of input 1. Down here, right, I'm running char at on input 2. I'm going to get characters from input 2. So dot notation means the thing afterward belongs to the thing before. Yes?
So for the more like robust one, a string last part equals input 2 that's substring input 2 for that line, what screwed me up is like for indexes you use 0 as the first letter, right? But for length you don't use it doesn't start at 0, it starts at 1, right?
For length, I'm not. You mean if a string has 1 character?
So if you do like
Input 2 dot length. This means, well, how long is input 2? It's however many characters it has, right? But we know if a string has X characters, the last usable index is length minus 1, right? Is X minus 1, right? So if a string is 6 characters long, its length is 6, but its indexes that are valid only go from 0 to 5.
Yeah.
It is tricky, right? If your code is all correct, except you mess up an index, you lose like half a point, maybe a point if like, you know, it's a whatever. You're not gonna get kneecapped for something like that. Okay? So if you mess it up that a little bit, but structurally your code is good, I'm more forgiving about that. These are, you know, these are minor errors that happen.
So, sorry to like cut you again. Could you do an example, like just break it, like dumb it down? So like let's say if you had a like the word like string for instance, right? So input two dot length for string would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? Length would be 6, right?
Sure.
Alright, so then we do length minus 2 for the substring.
Yeah, so hold on. Okay, let me do this. So we'll discuss this because I want to go through all the string methods anyway. Right? Remember, we're killing 3 birds today. So first thing, let's go over. Okay, so we're done with this for now. Okay, we're going to go over string methods. And before we do that, we'll mention indexing again. Indexing for strings starts at 0. Okay, the first character in a string is at index 0. The last character in a string is at index length minus 1. Right? Whatever the length of that string is, the last one that's there is that. Now, if the string is 0 length, that's going to give you a negative number, which basically means the string doesn't have any valid indexes. So, okay. So let's go. Let's go. So, suppose our string S is string, is actually the word string. Okay? So, s.length is what? Right? Everybody sees that? Not a problem? Okay? What's s.char at 0? Okay. I'll say is. Okay, so double equals for equality, not assignment. What's s.char at 5? Okay? What's s.char at s.length? It's an error. The technical error is array index out of bounds exception. Okay? That basically means what's the length char at 6? Since the string doesn't actually have a usable index 6. Okay? The last usable index is 5 with G. There's nothing after that. If I try to access character at index 6, I'd be going past the end of it. Java's not going to let me do that. Yes? When would what be negative 1?
When we do, I think, index of?
You can get an index 1. Index of will return a -1 if you don't find something.
Okay.
Okay? So this is length. Length is easy to understand, right? Char at. Char at is easy to understand if you know how indexing works. Index starts at 0 and goes to length -1 for that string. Okay? And remember, you always, always, always have to reference the particular string you're talking about. Okay? Because you could have string S equals string and string T equals not string. Okay? And it makes a big difference. If I just do this, that doesn't mean anything. That means length for some other class, you know, that whatever this statement is embedded in. T.length is obviously going to give you a different value of 10. Yes?
For example, if the string is not string, what about the space in between? Will that be like a spot in the index?
Yes. Okay, so spaces count. Space characters like count or indexing. Okay? So at index 3, t dot char at 3 is a space character. Okay, because you got to have somewhere to record that. Okay, that's char at, that's length. Index of, okay? Index of checks whether the string or character exists in the target string, right? Whether the parameter string or character in the target string, and returns the index where it starts in its first occurrence. Okay. If not found, index of returns -1. Okay. So, for example, problem. And again, try this on your machine, try this on paper, whatever. Write a method that accepts a parameter string named text and returns, a parameter named string and another named lookup, and returns the first index in text where lookup appears. Okay? How would we write this? What is our solution? What is our process? Remember what the process is? Same order that things happen in the header. What goes first? Return type. What's the return type? String. Is index a string? An int, right? It would be a number. Okay. You could also do it as a long or double, but that would be kind of weird. Or a float. So let's go with int. Okay? Int. What's the method name? There is no method name. So what shall you call it? Okay, we'll call it find out. That's fine. Right? As long as it's not something like IDS 201 sucks, I hate you, that's fine. Find out is perfectly acceptable. Parameters? Right. String text, comma, string lookup, right? Multiple parameters separated by commas. And we've already gotten a few points. Even if you don't know anything else, you got a few points and you've salvaged some self-respect. Okay? And that's important. It's important to have self-respect. Okay, what goes on in the method? Index of? Int.
That's what you want to return type, right?
Well, we want to have syntactically valid code. So if we're calling the index of method, are we just calling the method, or are we calling index of for a particular string? Int, we are calling it for a particular string. So, how do we write it?
Find out.
Okay. We'll call it FO, we'll avoid conflict. Int FO equals text.index of, good. Okay, because remember, we're calling index of for a particular string. Okay, and what are we index ofing? What are we index ofing? Lookup. Okay? Okay, so this, we're calling index of for this string text. That means we're looking up something in text, and what we're looking for is lookup. Okay? That's the index of function. And then what? What do we need to do? We're not done yet. Return what? What are we returning?
A number, right?
Yes, we're returning a number. What are we returning? We don't want to double declare something. we're returning FO, right? We found FO, that's the value we're returning. Okay? If we try to do this, if we try to do return int FO, we've double declared it. And the IDE will say, that's not valid. You can't declare the same thing twice in the same method. Right? We're already within the scope. Yes?
Can we return it without signing it in the second line?
You absolutely can. That's what I would do. I would say,
Why do we have to?
well, I'm just doing it. You don't have to. I'm doing it step by step to try to make it simpler, sadly enough. Yeah. But that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do it very step by step. Okay? So this is absolutely fine. This is the quantity that we're looking for, right? We're looking for where lookup starts in text, and the way you do that is you call text's index of function, and you send along lookup as the argument. Okay? That's the quantity we want to return. Index of will return a number, so whatever this method call returns, we just send that back. Does this make sense? I'm still recording, that's good. Questions on this? I know it's easy when I do it. I saw a hand up. You had a... No? You had... You? Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to have it. See, you could do it two different ways. You could have it like this, just return the quantity, or you could assign it to something, right, and then return FO. Okay? This way, you know, I'm just doing this for explanatory purposes. If it were me, I'd just do return text, blah, blah, blah. Right? But here I'm saying, okay, this is the number that we're getting, and then the method returns that number. You do either of those on an exam, and it's fine. Yes?
Can we do return int equals text.index?
No.
No.
I will explain why. Because short version, it is not syntactically valid. Okay? You can't do this. And the reason is Java just says basically you can't declare something in a return statement. Yeah.
The code we made right now, that's on return -1, right? This code.
How would we know? We don't know what text or lookup is. We haven't specified what they are. Those are names. Those aren't the actual text in the strings. If we were doing what you're talking about, right, that's basically what we would be doing, which is not what we're doing. Okay? And I can't even remember. I don't think you can have literals as a, that's been a long time since I would have tried, so I can check. I don't think you can have literals. I can just do it here. Void, lookup. Maybe you can, but I don't think so. Yeah, you can't have literals as parameters. Yeah, I'm listening.
This is something from the slides. It said that we can convert characters into string by doing concatenation and literals. What is literals exactly?
A literal is a string that you haven't created, with new. So this ordinary string, ordinary creation with the new reserved word would be string s equals new string, and you send along some text as a parameter, you know, text, whatever. Okay? Creation with literals would be string s equals text. Okay? So this here, where I actually spell out what the contents of the string are, that is what's called a literal. Okay? It's a literal string, and that's just a Java jargon word, whatever. I send that along to the constructor as an argument for string, and the constructor for string will make a new string that holds this text. Okay? It is a new object. If I create it as this literal, then I say s points to this literal wherever this literal is stored in memory. Okay, so here I'm calling the constructor method. Here I'm just referencing something that already exists in memory.
And
Yes.
will it give an error or something?
No, within the IDE, this automatically makes it exist in memory. The fact that my program includes this literal means in order for that program to run, that literal has to be stored somewhere in memory. Yeah.
So right now, they're two different places in memory, right?
Well, this is a bad example because they're, right, I'll call it S1 and S2. Yes, S1 and S2 would be in different places in memory. right? And if I do this, if I do string S3 equals text, exactly, then both S2 and S3 point to the same memory location. They're both stored. I only create one copy of the literal. It's a space-saving mechanism. Yeah?
So what is the return text index of returning?
Whatever number it finds in here. Depends on what lookup and text are. For example, I'll give you a thing. If text dot equals, if it equals text and lookup dot equals t would return 1, or would return 0, sorry. Okay, that's the index where it starts. On the other hand, if text dot equals text and lookup equals y would return -1. Okay? Likewise, if text equals text and lookup equals xt, it would return 2. Remember, methods work generically like that. I can call this method from anywhere and send along any two strings as arguments. So what this method returns depends entirely on what text and lookup are. Okay. All right, so that, yeah.
Can you explain this referencing?
Okay. I will, but let me wait till, let's keep on track with strings, but I'll get it at the end. Okay, yes.
You created S2 and S3, right, at the bottom?
Yes.
How does this relate to, or if you can just go with the concept of immutability with strings, you know, as soon as you make a new one, it just forms a new one, right? So it never deletes the other one, or the new
Well,
one
if no reference is pointing to something, it becomes garbage, right? So for example, if I subsequently do S1 equals new string gloob, right? Then this would become garbage. Okay, because there's no longer anything in the program that points to that memory reference. If something is in memory and there's nothing tied to it in the program, eventually the garbage collector will come around and pick it up. Yeah, so garbage collector does, but all you need to know about the garbage collector is it does what it's supposed to do. That's one of the beautiful things about it. In a language like C++, you actually have to manage that memory specifically and like dispose of objects and stuff like that. Java, you don't have to. Java, the garbage collector is going to take care of it. It's a wonderful, freeing thing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I missed the part that you mentioned if we can use the literal text in parameter.
You cannot. Yeah. So I did that as a demo here. Right? If I avoid lookup just text here, it throws an error. So yeah, you can't use a literal as a parameter. I was pretty sure you couldn't, but again, I haven't actually attempted that in a long time, so I was pretty sure you couldn't. Yeah.
Whenever you overwrite, when you're overwriting on S1, the prior is just like deleted then in memory?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the garbage collector will come and pick it up, right? Now, if I do that down here, right, if I subsequently say S2 equals gloob, this literal text, this doesn't go away, right? Because it's still being used by S3. So it's not garbage yet. Okay? It's different, right? As long as there's something in the program that's pointing to a thing in memory, garbage collector isn't going to pick it up, saying, oh, somebody's still using this. Yeah.
What if you put S2 right after S2 text? So S2, and then S3.
I don't know, right? S2 equals gloob? Then briefly text would be garbage, but the garbage collection cycle might not happen that fast, right? And so S3 would point to it. Yeah, it's a little unpredictable, but basically, you know, this thing for a little bit would not be being used by anything. Yeah, I mean, the precise synchronization of the garbage collection cycle is a little difficult to predict. Yeah. Okay, good. Those are all good and valid string-related questions. So, we have covered length, we have covered char at, we have covered index of, we've covered indexing, right? Then we have the big one that causes everybody to pull their hair out, substring. Okay, let's do a substring question again. So, question, write a method named, no, it's terrible, terrible. Named, I don't know, middle 4 that returns the middle 4 characters from a parameter, returns as a string, middle 4 characters from a parameter string named word. Okay? Parameter string named word. This is a difficult one. This requires some math. So how would we do that? Let's start. How do we start? Write the header. What's the return type? Yes. String. Yeah, or put an underscore. Yeah. You could. It's not obligatory. If you're doing underscores, you usually don't capitalize every word. If you're not using underscores, yeah, then you probably would. It's more of a convention, though. It's not rigidly enforced, but yeah, you can't have a space character in your method name. So string middle 4, and what's the parameter? String word, okay? Not just word, and definitely not word inside quotes. String word, right? So word is a reference to whatever contents string word contains, whatever data it contains. Okay? Everybody see that? Everybody's comfortable with method headers? You will need to know these for Monday. Okay. So, how would we do this? How would we approach this problem? How do we get the middle 4 characters?
Find the median.
Okay. Hold on. I'm going to add one more thing. You can safely assume that the string has at least 4 characters and an even length number. Okay, that'll help the process a little bit. Because if we had like a string of length 5, we're like, oh shit, what are the middle 4?
You divide length by 2.
Okay.
You find the 2 ahead of it and 2 before them.
Okay, so let's discuss process. Divide length by 2. Okay? So if length is 4, then 4 over 2 equals 2. Let's think about this. Okay. If the character is 4 long, right, then where are we starting? So suppose our word is actually word. Yes. What's at index 2? R, right? Which means,
You only need 3 more.
well, which means we start the back half at length divided by 2 and contains 2 characters, right? So we actually start the second half at index over 2. Where do we start the first half? Oh, hold on. We're getting 4 characters, right? Or we're getting 4 characters, middle 4. So if the back half starts at length over 2,
2 plus 2. Length over 2 plus 2.
plus 2, minus 2, minus 2. Okay? It's okay. It's okay. Everybody see that? So, we start the back half at length minus 2. That contains 2 characters. The other 2 characters must be the previous 2 characters, right? Yeah? Because if we're getting RD for the back half, well, the first 2 are obviously the 2 before. So, it must start 2 indexes earlier at length over 2 minus 2, right? Less in there. Does that make sense? It does not make sense? Okay, let's give an example. Suppose the word is octagons. Okay? What are the middle 4 characters? Correct. Middle 4 are Tago, right? Everybody sees that? Okay. If we do this length divided by 2, okay, what's length divided by 2? What's length? Yeah. Length, because it's a simple way to get to where we want to be. To get the middle 4 characters. Okay, so the length is 8. Then length over 2 is 4. Okay? We've shown that length over 2 is where we start the back half, right? If we split it in 2, right, we're going to get this. Because the length is 8, we're going to get actually this character. We're going to get the start of the back half of it. So that's going to be fine. The first 2 characters of the whole back half of the string start at length over 2. The previous 2 characters must start at length divided by 2 over minus 2. Yeah. So we take what substring? And the substring formula isn't going to change regardless of the length of word. Okay? So, return what? Word.substring, and then where do we start? Yeah, we start word.length divided by 2 minus 2, comma. Yeah, that's where we end, right? That's the first character we don't include. And the reason why we know this, what's the difference between the two? What's the difference between this and this? No, not what's the difference. What's the mathematical difference between them? What's this minus this? No. Yeah. What's 2 minus minus 2 is 4, right? That's how we know. This is where we start. In a substring formula, the first argument is where we start, and the second argument, minus the first, is how many characters we're pulling back. Okay? This one technically means the first character we don't include, but the easier way to think about it, this minus that is how many characters we're bringing back. Okay? We want to get 4 characters back, it should be that minus that. Just like we had in our quiz, we had, give me the first 3 characters of a string. It was starting at 0, going to 3, right? Because 3 minus 0 is 3. Okay. This is a good, safe place to end, so I'm going to